I guess for a little bit more context on Shoplift, like the really one of the key differences in terms of like, why Shoplift is different than something like Google Optimize or like some of these, legacy tools, whether I'm sure you guys have heard of some of them, whether it's like VWO or Optimizely, Dynamic Yield, stuff like that. It really comes down to mechanics. So traditionally, the way A/B testing has been done is these tools will give you some sort of like third-party editor to make changes on the site, and then in order to actually like show those changes to the folks who visit the site, they're really just slapping a bunch of code on top in order to deliver those changes. And at the end of the day, these tools aren't built for Shopify, right? So they're trying to be all things for all people. They're not necessarily optimizing for speed or compatibility or data quality through Shopify. And that's really what makes Shoplift different. So on a basic level, and we'll get more in the weeds on this stuff, I'm sure we'll get kind of more into the technical discussion. But the main ways that most folks run tests through Shoplift is done on the template and theme level. So again, on a very basic level, all we're really doing in those cases is telling Shopify, as soon as the visitor hits the page, show them template A or template B, or if you're doing, maybe something more global, theme A or theme B. We also have more complex test types that are more developer focused around like JavaScript and HTML based stuff. So we can get into all of that. But really, in terms of like the core mechanics, this is like the fastest way you even can run an A/B test through Shopify, just because these pages are still loading exactly as they always would, whether or not they're being tested. And that really allows us to avoid a lot of the common pitfalls that come with A/B testing, right? That I'm sure you guys have heard of, whether that's having site speed issues because you're like loading all this extra code, which can then lead to like flickering effects, where it's like flashing one version and then showing the visitor another, which obviously is not a great user experience. And then they're leaving because it's slow and it's breaking. So yeah, with Shoplift, you don't have to worry about any of that. And additionally, there's a bunch of other benefits that come in terms of like how easy this stuff is to set up and use and just kind of maintain over time. The data quality we're able to get through Shopify, through our connection to the backend and all of that good stuff. So really excited to jump in and run you guys through all of this stuff. But before we get started, is there any kind of general questions on the high level overview? Otherwise, I'm happy to just kind of jump in and go from there. Sweet. Well, let's go ahead and pop in. But feel free to interrupt me at any time, whether that's just using the little hand raise thing or just unmute yourself and interrupt. That's totally fun. So really, the first thing to call out here is that Shoplift is just one-click install from the Shopify App Store. So unlike these other tools where there's the super long and complex onboarding period and developers have to come in to drop like tracking scripts and do custom integrations, there's literally none of that with Shoplift. There's actually no setup required whatsoever. Most folks are getting a test up and running within the first 5 or 10 minutes of installing the app. So it's really as plug and play as it gets. And then when I go in to create a test, like I was kind of mentioning, I'll actually use this little help me decide modal here just as a visual. There's really 3 main test types, well, 4, and we can get into that. You've got your classic template and theme level type tests. We also have URL redirect tests. Generally speaking, it's not like the most common use case in the world, but there are some cases where it is incredibly helpful. So we have it if you need it, but generally the majority of tests tend to be done on the template and theme level. And I'm sure this team is pretty much more than familiar with Shopify at this point, so I'm not going to get super in the weeds on what tests might be better for a template versus a theme. But generally speaking, if you're looking to do like global elements like your navigation or card or something like that, you can go with a theme test. If you did want to test design on an individual page or group of pages, you could go with a template test. So there is this third way to create a test, but I'll hold off or the fourth way, but I'll hold off for a bit. We can run through some examples on the template and theme level, and then we can get into the more custom test types as well. So when I go in to create a template test here, the first thing you'll probably notice is that every single template, whether it's the home pages, the collection pages, PDPs, landing pages, cart, etc., even all the like more miscellaneous templates, all these are going to get pulled into Shoplift immediately as soon as you install on a client store, and they'll get nice and categorized here for you. And what's super nice is that Shoplift is constantly in sync with anything that's happening in Shopify. So if you guys or the client are in there editing these templates or themes or adding new ones or deleting them, anything like that, all of that just gets reflected back into Shoplift instantaneously. So for this example, I'm just going to go with the home page just to keep things nice and simple. And then on the right, you'll see that there's really three main ways to get a variant for a template test. So the simplest is just going to be grabbing an existing asset or existing template from the live theme. So whether this is something you guys create from scratch for the client, maybe it's some old creative that you want to test against what you're using now. Also, any like third-party page builders that you guys are using or might be inheriting from a client, like Gem Pages or Replo or anything like that. All those are fully compatible, so they populate here as well for you to choose from. This is also a really good opportunity because, oftentimes people will come to us and they'll say, well, we're doing all this landing page work and we're driving all this traffic to landing pages, but like, are those landing pages actually converting any better than just sending people directly to like the homepage or a specific PDP or collection or something? So you can also test any of these different template types against each other if you ever need. The other main way to create a variant for a template test here, which does tend to be a bit more common if you don't have a variant just like ready to go, is to create a duplicate. Because what's actually happening here is Shoplift is just creating a pixel perfect copy of this original. So any amount of custom code that has been done, all of the different sections, the layout, the app blocks, etc. What's going to happen is they're all just going to get copied over from this original template here onto this brand new one. This isn't loading because I'm not logged in on the back end of my Shopify. Pull this up real quick. Apologies. Cool. Let's see. I'll just grab this one. So from here, instead of trying to, like wrangle with some third-party editor like you typically would when doing, a test with these other tools, with Shoplift, literally all you have to do is click Edit in Shopify. And this is just going to bring me directly into the native Shopify editor, the one we all know and love. Well, I guess some people hate it. I tend to think it's pretty all right. But yeah, I mean, out of all the benefits that do come with how closely integrated we are with Shopify, one of the things that people love the most is the ability to just make these edits directly in the Shopify theme customizer, because full stop, literally anything you can do in Shopify, you can test. So whether that's something, more basic, like, changing your copy, maybe you want to swap out, images or something. This can obviously be used for like testing videos and all that good stuff as well. You can move things around, change or, hide and show different elements, all that good stuff. But another thing that's super unique to us is not only can you just test content sections, but you can also test out app blocks. So if your clients are using anything for their reviews or their bundling, upsells, like UGC content, like literally any of those third-party app providers can be tested as well. Developers tend to absolutely love this. For those of you who are developers on the call, because you can actually just go in and edit that underlying liquid in JSON directly instead of trying to like abstract the changes on top of the site, which generally speaking tends to be a much more streamlined workflow to begin with. But when it actually comes to implementing the winning variant of a test after you get a winner, it makes things astronomically easier. And I'll make sure to get into that when we get into reporting, but just something to be aware. So on the template level, that's just kind of the basics. If I did want to run a theme test, it is the exact same workflow. So I'm just going to kind of talk you through it in the sake of time. Your live theme is going to be your A. You can then just duplicate that theme or grab the existing theme you already have for your B. You then just, again, pop right back into Shopify to set up these tests. And then from there, you'd be able to configure different navigations or header options, different card options, like literally any of your different theme level settings. You can even test app embeds on the theme level. So oftentimes we'll have people test apps against each other, toggle them on and off, play with those apps theme level settings. So that can just add a whole extra level of testing functionality on top of that stuff as well. Sweet. So now that I've made some changes on this template that we're looking to test, all I have to do is click save, just as I normally would when making edits in Shopify, and then just pop back into Shoplift and set up the rest of this test. So as I come down here, you've got your traffic split. It's 50-50 by default, but really totally up to you. You can even actually do this 100% traffic split to the B if you did want to do more of like a personalization campaign, and we can get more into the weeds on that. As I come down here, you'll see you've got 5 major goals to choose from, but don't worry, we're going to give you incredibly in-depth reporting on every single one of these metrics, and honestly, like way, way more. But the goal you're choosing is really just what's driving statistical significance for this specific test. You can target by device type. So if you only wanted to show this test to folks who are on mobile or desktop or both, same thing with new and returning visitors. So maybe we wanted to say, I only want to show this test to folks who have been to the site before, or those who haven't. you can do that as well. And then finally, in addition to new and returning visitors and device type, you also get access to this really nice audience targeting suite. And this is where things can get pretty fun because now you have access to all of these other parameters as well. So you're able to segment by different geographies, different referring domains, any of your different UTM parameters. You can even get down to the individual URL string, and you can mix and match and stack these however you wanted to. So if you want to say only people coming from outside of the US, from Facebook and Instagram, from these 3 specific pieces of content, you could do that as well. Wouldn't necessarily recommend getting that granular for a test, as you're going to have a lot less traffic to look at. But that can be super helpful in those more personalization scenarios. So an example of that is I was working with this brand based out of the UK, and they had, they sell like jerseys for different football clubs, and they had different ads running for like Liverpool and Arsenal and, Man City and all this stuff. So when you clicked in on one of those ads, instead of just kind of hitting a more generic landing page, they would actually get shown, a homepage with copy to match that ad, CTAs to match, all of that good images, all of that good stuff. You can even actually do that on a theme level if you wanted to. It can get a little bit more complicated in terms of like managing that stuff, but you certainly can, and we see people do it all the time. This also came up a lot during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, because you're also able to actually schedule these tests or campaigns. So a lot of folks were saying, okay, we're going to set up personalizations to run the night of Black Friday and end, the night of Cyber Monday. Then you don't have to stay up until 2 a.m. monitoring this stuff. It just kind of happens automatically. And then when you're running an A/B test, you can actually just have these scheduled to end automatically when they reach significance. So lots and lots of options there. Sweet. Well, there is a third way to create a template test, and that's called Lift Assist. So there's a million different grade tests that you can run right out of the Shopify editor. But at a certain point, you might say, well, I really want to run this test, but it is for the specific feature or asset or just kind of like general functionality that's not available on the site yet. And then in those cases, the client would have to go to you guys and get that built out custom. And look, at a certain point, there's always going to be, if you need to do like a complete redesign for a test, like that obviously will have to be developed. But especially when you're trying to test kind of these like, smaller changes or just like new assets, you don't necessarily want to invest a ton of development time on the front end because you can find out that test isn't performing well. Now, like obviously that can be a pretty frustrating situation. And that's where Lift Assist can be incredibly powerful, because what this actually is just this huge library of assets that our data has shown are proven to increase performance just kind of across the board. So because we're working with like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stores, we have all of this data coming in every day saying, okay, what are people testing? What elements and what specific contexts? Like, how's that performing? And essentially, all of that data is just getting translated into these custom Lift Assist sections. And there's a million different things in here, so I won't go through all of them, but whether that's more custom heroes, different like sticky banners or static bars, different CTA types, reviews, countdown timers, navigations, there's really like a million different things in here. We do have options for all the different template types. We even actually have this really nice recommended section that's going to spin up recommendations for any specific store that installs. But really what I think makes all of this even more unique, beyond it just being backed by a ton of data, is that every single one of these sections is actually going to match the client's specific styling and branding automatically. And the way we've actually been able to do that is we developed this really cool model. And what the model does is when you install Shoplift, it's going to scan like the live website, and it's going to build this brand book automatically. And what it's going to do is it's going to pull in, all the individual fonts, all of the different colors, all of the patterns. So even pick up on the little stuff like button rounding and hover states and all that good stuff as well. You do have this editor if you ever want to change anything. But what that means is when I go in to set up a Lift Assist test, I'll just grab one of my recommended, keep this nice and easy. Let's take a look at this quick nav. This is really one of my favorites. It's kind of like that Instagram story style navigation that tends to work really well on mobile. So when I click test it, it's the exact same workflow that we were just looking at a second ago. It's just going to be creating another duplicate template here for me. But now, instead of this just being like a pixel perfect one-to-one copy, I mean, you're still going to get all of the same pre-existing assets that you had on this original. But now when I go in to edit in Shopify, once this loads, there might be somebody in the back end of this, but I can actually just show you guys directly. So effectively what Lift Assist does, and actually a really cool thing about this and why I can just show you directly, is that these sections just get automatically generated directly into the Shopify editor. So like here's all the standard Shopify stuff. But when I go down to the bottom and click show more, all of the Lift Assist sections that I've ever created would just be populating here automatically. So for example, like this quick nav, I've used it before, so it's already here to get ready to go. And from here, like in this case, literally all I would have to do is populate these collections and I'm good to go. So, obviously this can save a ton of time being able to spin up something like this so quickly. You could always go back and build something more custom after the fact if you really wanted to. But, most of the time people are just going to keep these up in their live stores kind of permanently. And I'd say that's really for two good reasons. I mean, one, we're never going to take these away from you. I mean, as you saw, they just get saved directly to the theme file. So you get to keep them for as long as you want, even if you decide to uninstall Shoplift at some point. And we also, we kind of joke internally sometimes this is almost like jailbreaking your theme. I mean, obviously we're not actually jailbreaking anything, but beyond just getting access to, all these new features and assets, there's all sorts of no-code functionality baked into these right out of the box. Actually, when we were building Lift Assist, we kind of bumped up against the limit of what Shopify will even like allow you to put into like in terms of like no code customization in the settings. So let me show you that. So like for this one, maybe we want to change our rounding. Maybe we actually want to make this more of like a thumbnail or just text. We can make it more of a card. So there's like a million different things you can do in here. I can obviously like change, this text if I wanted to. But just to kind of briefly drive the point home, I think what really shows these really well is the heroes. So if I grab this hero, for example, you'll see that there's just all sorts of options here in terms of text padding and formatting and styling. Same thing with the CTAs. What's actually really cool about this is you can overwrite any of the brand styles that Lift Assist gives you whenever you want to. So if you want to make this button color red instead, we can also go in here and change our rounding. Sorry, I'm still getting used to the new Shopify settings. Anyways, and then the coolest thing about these is that they do come with these pre-built blocks. So if I did want to throw in like a countdown timer for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or a release or something, or our business benefits or reviews. So, really with testing, you want to try to stay as agile as possible and be able to, spin up things really quickly. And obviously if you have to, get things built out custom every time you want to test it, it can really slow things down. So people tend to absolutely love these. Is this something that you guys could potentially see yourselves using with your teams? Beautiful. Well, why don't we go ahead and move on into reporting? I know that's kind of where the magic happens, at least when it pertains to A/B testing. So this is an example report that's already ended and reached significance, but reporting does look effectively identical while your test is live. So at the top here, you get a nice little reminder of how your test was set up. So in this case, we're looking at a classic homepage test. You've got your overview, so how many people encountered the test, what was the percent lift on that primary goal, which in this case was conversion rate. You have your test progress. So while the test is running, this is going to say something like trending towards significance, likely to reach significance, needs more data, things of that nature. You also actually get your estimated time to reach significance, just so you can have a super accurate understanding of like how long is this test actually going to take to run overall. I know clients can get antsy. They're like, how long is this going to take? So you'll have a good measure there as well. Down here, you've got your overviews for your A and your B. So right now we're looking at conversion rate, which was our primary metric, but you can, like I was mentioning, look at any of these other metrics as well. So if I did want to pan through my average order value, revenue per visitor, click-through rate, all that good stuff, I certainly can as well. So the other really nice thing about this and how closely integrated we are with Shopify is that we actually have direct one-to-one order matching. So one order in Shopify is just going to be one order in Shoplift. You can even get the order exports for each variant to say, okay, like in this case, are people buying more of the blue watch or more of a variety of watches, or does it not really make a difference? So in those cases, you never have to worry about dropped orders or discrepancies in revenue or anything weird happening like that either. Down here, you can see how these different metrics track over time for each variant. You can also see the probability for each variant to win based off of those metrics. Here you've got your traffic splits. So where are people coming from in terms of their channels, what devices are they using, and have they been to the site before or not? But really down here is where things get a lot more granular. So at the top, we're looking at all of our individual conversion metrics. You can also look at all of your individual engagement metrics. You can even actually look at subscription metrics. And again, this does not require any additional setup. This works with all the subscription providers through Shopify. We're just getting it through that order tagging. And this can obviously be invaluable for folks with the subscription offering because, maybe the test is kind of net neutral on conversion rate or even kind of trending down a little bit. But when you come into subscriptions, you're seeing that going way up. Obviously, that can be a net benefit and something you really want to be able to dig in on. So people absolutely love this. So this table is broken up by device type, but you're still getting all of that same level of reporting for your new and returning visitors. Really, my favorite part is the ability to see all of the same level of analytics for all of your different channel groups and referring domains as well. And you can even break this up by device type. So this can just allow you to have like a hyper granular view of how these different cohorts are performing on the site because you guys know better than anybody. A brand's audience is not a monolith, right? Like people are coming from different ads with different levels of knowledge and context about the brand are obviously going to interact with the site very differently. So being able to come in here and have a super granular view of how these different cohorts are performing, can really give you a really good understanding. And then when you start pairing that with the segmentation I was showing you in the beginning, you can start breaking out underperforming groups onto their own tests, digging into what's going to make them convert better. Then you can just really make sure that the site is well optimized for all the different types of folks who are coming to it. So last few things I'll call out here. One, we actually do have a direct integration with GA4. So it's just a one-click sign in through the integrations page in the Shoplift settings. And then from there, Shoplift is just going to create audiences in GA for the A and the B. And then from there, you can do any types of custom explorations or additional reporting on top of this stuff. And then really the last thing to call out here, and this just is the cherry on top for me because it's something that's been neglected in A/B testing for pretty much forever. And that's, okay, great, we got this huge lift on our variant here. Let's get that live on the site. But when you're using these other tools, after a test is over, you then have to rebuild everything back into Shopify. It can take forever. It can be really hard to get it to look or work or feel the exact same way as it did while the test is running. And at that point, you're just starting from scratch. So what we did instead is we built this magical little apply variant button. So after your test is over, if you're running a template or theme test, you can just click this button. It literally happens instantly. This variant will just get set as the default on the live site. The original will just get saved back to the theme, or if you're doing a theme level test, into the theme drawer in the admin, and then you're good to go. So there's literally no implementation work you have to do on the back end of these tests either. Okay, cool. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time to chat today. Hope you guys have a good new year and everything goes very, very well.